Oh, of course.
He was. That's according to that's their official story. The man that they claim did it was a PTSD Army vet.
Well, I mean, let's face it. We all know the government would not lie to us.
If you believe that, I got a big floppy wiener to dangle in your face.
Okay, you need a new one.
Yeah, I know. Hey, my boy's 12. Everyone, Tyson. He's not listening. I doubt on his computer, but he should be. He's a big fan of the show, though. Yeah, he's got South Park's tape, so I'll find a new one for next week. I promise.
That's perfect.
Okay.
And
anyway,
now
back to 9/11.
No, I want.
Okay, well, no, go ahead, Dan. If you're not done, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Don.
Well, back to 9/11.
I was done.
Okay. The 28 pages. You didn't hardly see anything about this in the mainstream media, obviously, but they finally, last month, after 15 years, released the 28 pages, it's called. You know, the hidden part of the 9/11 Commission report. It was like 8 billion pages long. There were 28 pages that they didn't release. So, of course, for 15 years, I mean, people are wondering what's there. You know, it obviously proves whatever, you know. And when it did come out, what they did release actually showed there was a little bit of connection between the hijackers and people in the Saudi government. You know, because as it pointed out, and maybe it wasn't in the 28 pages, but a lot of these hijackers came to America. They didn't speak a lick of English, didn't know a thing about Western culture. But yet they managed to live here for a year and blend in and open bank accounts and get IDs, driver's licenses, and nobody noticed. No, they obviously had help from somebody. Right. My friends from Central America, when I first met them, they'd only been here a year, and I had to help them. You know, it had like the country set up to help Spanish-speaking people. You know, press 1 for English. You know, I had to help them out. You can imagine a man from the Middle East, you know, that knows nothing of our culture and speaks no English. How did they survive here for a year and take pilot training? You know, they had help, and the 28 pages did show a connection. And of course, it was convoluted. It was, you know, the Saudi prince. You know, his wife sent money to somebody else's wife who, you know, hijackers had to have some money to live on when they got here, and they had to have help. And but hey, the Saudi government, we all know they're big fans of the Clintons, and
but they couldn't release that because it would have
money.
Stopped their justification for the invasion of Iraq, which was what they wanted in the first place.
Oh, sure, yeah. W wanted to fix his daddy's mess.
No. Saddam Hussein put a price on his daddy's head.
Well, that's part of it too.
That's what. You know, I almost agree with the first time we went in because they invaded Kuwait.
Exactly.
Kuwait was our ally.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, and the only problem with that is doing that is what caused Osama bin Laden to not like the United States. I mean, in the late 70s, early 80s, Osama was our friend. You know, we were sending him weapons to keep the Russians out of Afghanistan just because the Russians were our quote-unquote enemies at the time, you know. We're the ones that armed bin Laden.
Absolutely.
Started his Mujahideen.
Saddam Hussein was given the key to Detroit in 1988.
Sure. We didn't have a problem with him then. He was selling us cheap oil, and, hey, so what? He was
But he was just as much of a dictator.
He was just as big a dictator back then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was... You know, we didn't care what he did to his people. He was selling us cheap oil. Hey, we can overlook a few minor civil rights violations. You got cheap oil. Hey, good to go. You know, but because, like you said, you know, it was, you know, it was. You could see it being justified to go defend Kuwait. The problem is, Osama bin Laden wanted to defend Kuwait. He pretty much had every right to. I mean, Christ, he just beat the freaking Russians, the greatest number 2 superpower in the world. The whole cause of the Cold War. 40 years of, you know, instead of 40 days and nights, it was 40 years of hell, you know. The Russians are our enemies. And his little Mujahideen, beat the Russians back, kept them out of Afghanistan. He went to Kuwait. Osama wanted to defend Kuwait, and you can't. He just beat the Russians. You don't think he could have beat Saddam and his little Republican Guard? But no, the Saudis said, no, come on over, America. You can do the job, And as soon as Americans put the military on Arab grounds, Saudi Arabia, Osama bin Laden said, F you, United States. You're now my enemy, okay? I was a hero. I was a hero. If the Saudis would have just gave me the money, I could have beat Saddam. And we went to defend Kuwait, kicked Saddam's ass in, going for, 4 days, 100-hour war. But they also turned bin Laden against the United States. And that's basically the start of what caused 9/11, the whole reason we're here today talking about it.
Yeah.
But as your point was, the problem is, we went and beat Saddam, but we let him stay in power. Well, if he's that bad of a dictator, he's attacking our allies, why do we let him stay in power?
It's a good question. Out of our pay grade, though.
Yeah, I don't think they pay us.
Clearance.
Yeah, they don't pay us enough to tell us enough to answer that question, but whatever. But I mean, the whole point of 9/11, if you believe it was an inside job, and there's if you believe it was a false flag, and there's lots of evidence to suggest it was. I'm not going to tell you what to believe. Just educate yourself and then see what you believe. Don't just listen to what you see on TV. It's all the history of this country. Our country was built on war. Built on
I'm pretty sure. I read a statistic somewhere that in the 250 whatever years of the United States, we've only spent like 9 not in a war.
Yeah.
Always fighting somewhere. Got to fight somebody. Got to feed that military-industrial complex.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, back in, when the country started, of course, the Revolutionary War was necessary to be a free country, and then, there was a couple more wars, War of 1812's in there, where Britain, tried to take us back, said no, where it wasn't a military-industrial complex. It was people. The whole reason the Second Amendment was actually formed, it was guys like me and you and our listeners grabbing their guns and going and fighting to defend the country, But as soon as the big banks took over, and they figured out, hey, war is it's the biggest profit you can make, because the banks love war, because they loan money to both sides. They don't care who wins the war. They just want the war to keep going. Ever since then, we have to have war, no matter what.
And
we went to war.
The microcosm of that is what you just said about doesn't matter who wins, is the Democrats and Republicans. Yeah. They want to keep it close. They don't want any one side becoming the dominant side. They want to keep it right there in the middle, keep us fighting with each other.
Yep.
Have all of the conservatives calling us a bunch of tree huggers, and having all the tree huggers call the conservatives a bunch of racists.
Yep.
It's all part of their plan to keep the 99% fighting with itself.
Sure. If the 99% are fighting against each other,
we're not against them.
99% are fighting each other. They can't mess with the 1%. They're too busy fighting each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad thing is, this country was built. Excuse me. Even though the Constitution is however many pages long, never mentions God or Christ or anything. This is not a Christian nation. Let's just dispel that myth right now. But the Revolutionary War started, and the country was founded because of freedom of religion. Everybody agrees to that. People came here, because they didn't want to be part of the Church of England. That's how it all started.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And when we fought the Revolutionary War, all these people, Christian, Pilgrim, Mormon, if John Smith was around back then, whatever, all these different religions got together to defeat England and make it a free country. Now they've got us all fighting each other, where they can just bend us over. Unfortunately, seem to have lost our connection with Larry. He's going to call back in a minute. Oh, Larry's back. I hope we're back on the. I don't know if we were off the air, but I was talking anyway.
Oh, you were on. I had a technical difficulty, but you were on.
Yeah, well, no, but it was showing the host this show was on the air or not, but we're on now, so it's all good. Anyway, let's finish up this Revolutionary War discussion because that was 240 years ago. It's really not relevant to today's problems. Outside of the fact, like I was saying back then, all the people of different religions, you can't say races because they were all white, they came together.
Well, Don, I beg to differ. I think it is relevant.
Okay.
For two reasons. One, because the Revolutionary War, the product of that was the Constitution.
Yeah.
In the Constitution, it states that it's our duty to abolish and replace a tyrannical government.
Yeah.
Define tyranny. I'm pretty sure that what's going on hits that definition. When the people stand up and cast their vote and have that vote disenfranchised and discarded, that's tyranny.
Yeah.
That's telling the people, we the people can't have what we want.
Yeah.
I've spoke about this on previous shows, and I'm going to bring it up again because it disgusts me.
Well, before you go on your rant, so let me just throw in for a second. Now I'm going to let you rant away. The other day, I hopped in the car, had on radio, they're giving away tickets to a concert. I didn't even hear what it was. It's a little station out of this too bad. I called in, I won the tickets, okay. Turns out it's some heavy metal thing. It's like 4 bands. Great, I'm going to take Tyson to it just because he got all A's on his progress report. It's a nice reward. I'll take him to St. Louis to a concert. But one of the bands is called Iron Core Resistance. And Tyson kind of loved that name. That's kind of what made him want to go. Went to their website to check them out. And if it's okay with them, we're going to steal their motto and make it the motto of our show. When injustice becomes law, when injustice becomes law, rebellion becomes duty.
I like it. I don't know about the motto for my show and stealing it from them, but
it's not.
I like
it's kind of informal. It's because that's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about. Making your vote count, voting green instead of just voting for the two-party, Republicrats or Demopublicans, whatever you want to call them. It's one party, basically.
Right. And I understand that, but dude, I'm telling you right now, and I've said it time and again, it's not going to matter. If Hillary Clinton is on that ballot, she's going to win. They did not rig the primary to lose the general.
No. Hey, if you think the Patriots are cheaters, whatever, let's go to a football analogy since today's opening football season. They didn't tape the team signals just to get to the Super Bowl and stop taping them and lose.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, and hey, I agree 100%. Why would they cheat to get her on the ballot in November? I mean, I guess you could look at it one other way. I'll throw this out there. Maybe they did it because they know Bernie would have beat Trump about 3-1 and they want Trump to be president for 4 years, so they throw Hillary out there and he can beat her.
I'd be more inclined to believe that they didn't want it to be such a one-sided, lopsided victory because of what would happen to the flipping of Congress.
Oh, sure.
They didn't want an honest man to have that much control.
Oh, of course not. I mean,
Bernie Sanders has proven he can't be fought.
No, exactly.
Now he can be threatened. And we'll get into that in a minute, but I want to get back to where I was.
Go ahead.
In regards to why I think the Revolutionary War is very relevant. Because a lot of people died. A lot of people died for this country.
Yes.
And they died so you could have a vote, and I could have a vote, and that vote could count. That vote would mean something. You know, we've been fighting wars for democracy ever since.
Well, wait.
And I'm not saying any of these wars.
In fairness to Twan, since he runs the network, they fought so every white man could have a vote.
Right. At the time, yes. Yes, you are correct.
Yeah.
Well, they were getting 3/5 of a vote, I think. That's what we got now, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
But anyway, how many soldiers have fought and died for my right to vote? You know?
It's got to be
only to have Hillary Clinton disenfranchise them. To me, short of the murder of Seth Rich, it's one of the worst things she's ever done.
Yeah.
And I still challenge anybody to come up with one other person that has the means, the opportunity, and the motive to kill that young man.
Without robbing.
He wasn't robbed. No, he wasn't robbed. They said maybe it was a botched robbery.
Yeah.
It's pretty badly botched when you shoot a guy and don't take his shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've done it wrong. If that's a robbery, you need to go back to robbery school because you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't learn much last time you were locked up. See, if you shoot a guy and don't take his stuff, pretty easy to rob someone once they're dead.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. But like I said, and the other reason is the Constitution. It's our responsibility to stand up for everybody who's died for us. You know? Just like that website or the band you're talking about. It's our duty.
Yeah.
If you're not part of the cure, you're part of the problem. If you're going to sit down and watch TV and not care about what's going on in the world around you, you are part of the problem.
Yeah.
You know? Climate change is real. It's been proven. Like they got half this country thinking that it isn't. When I was watching a program this morning about polar bears, you know, and how the summer ice is retracted so far that the polar bears, they have this swim they make every year. Well, their cubs are dying because they can't make the swim. Polar bears are great swimmers, but the cubs aren't strong enough to make that long of a swim. So somebody tell them polar bears that climate change ain't real as their cubs die.
Yeah.
That makes me mad. So I like animals.
Yeah. And even there are people out there, and it's a true point, that say, you know, climate changes over time. You know, there was the ice age. I'm in Kentucky. Used to be polar bears here, probably. Yes, that's proven scientific fact. No doubt about it, okay? You have a point. But you can't sit there and tell me, I mean, it's proven, you know, greenhouse gas effect is a proven scientific fact as well. You know, burning oil is spewing pollution into the air. You know, smog is a scientific fact as well. You know, you can't sit there and say that our dependence on fossil fuels isn't rapidly increasing climate change and destroying the only planet we have to live on.
Mm-hmm. You can if you have been drinking lead water your whole life.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, yeah, you're drinking oil because, you know, the fracking has polluted your drinking water. I guess you might believe that, but it's people, you know, there's the meme of Hillary Clinton supporters who got bent over with his head up his ass. If you want to be like that, go right ahead. You know, I mean, but it's just ridiculous when, as you know, Jill Stein, a big part of her campaign, will point out, you know, it wouldn't take but 20, 30 years if we invested in it to be free of oil. You know, I mean, I live right next door, right across the street from where we live is the property for the hydroelectric dam, which I mean causes a few environmental problems of its own, no doubt. But hydroelectric energy is clean. Once the dam's there and the fish and everybody else in the water, it does clean energy. There's no pollution from hydroelectric energy. There's no pollution from wind energy. There's no pollution from solar energy. There's no pollution from tidal energy. It's
Correct.
big oil, which is, big oil is big oil because, as you said, the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts back 150 years ago invested in big oil. Well, if they would invest in solar energy and wind energy, the oil could stay in the ground.
It's a good spot for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, hey, if you're one of those people that, believe the Earth's only 6,000 years old, that's when God created it. God put oil in the ground for a reason, probably.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he put the dinosaurs there. He put dinosaur bones there. He didn't put dinosaurs there, just their bones.
Just to mess with us, yeah. But, hey, if you believe that, there's a reason, water covers 75% of the Earth and oil's underground. Think about it.
Mm-hmm. And our body content is 75% water.
Yeah, we need water to live. We don't need oil to live.
Nope.
Because,
well, granted, we need energy.
Yeah.
But we don't need oil.
No. I mean,
0.6%. Hang on a second. 0.6%. That's the amount of the United States that needs to be covered with solar panels. That's like 1/100th of Arizona. One little corner. To be covered in solar panels would supply energy to the entire country.
Wait, what's the percent you said?
0.6%.
Oh, 0.6. Yeah, it sounded like you said 26%. I knew that wasn't right.
No.
Yeah, 0.6%.
No.
Okay.
0.6%. That's not very much. We could start building that now and be done in a couple of years. And could supply the entire country with solar power.
I've already done some of the research. I've done some of the research. I mean, there are companies out there now. You can go out, and if you want to make the investment, if you're going to stay in your home, it's pretty simple to, put solar panels on your roof or in your yard, enough to supply your own house with nothing but solar power. And in lots of cases, you connect to the energy grid, you wind up selling power back to the energy companies because you're producing so much power. You don't need it all for your house.
Happens all the time. They don't want people to know that.
Oh, hell no. There's a high school just in between where we grew up in Hammond, Indiana, right outside Chicago, and where we went to high school for a couple of years. North Newton High School, Newton County, Indiana, they put up a windmill. They were hoping to supply some of the power to their school. And they wound up producing so much energy from this one windmill, and they produce so much energy, they sell it back to NIPSCO all the time, from one windmill.
Mm-hmm.
People that say, windmills are bad because birds can fly into a windmill. Well, and that's partially true. Nature
it happens. But you know what? That's fine. But if they're going to say that, wait a minute, Don, if they're going to say that, then they have to say the same damn thing about cars. Because I went to work, I was there a couple months ago, and this guy showed up to work with an owl in his grill. An owl. in his grill. No, I've hit some armadillos, and I've hit a deer, and I've hit a turtle and a snake. I never hit an owl, but there was one in this dude's grill.
That's pretty strange.
So that's just people trying to nitpick, looking for reasons to knock wind power. Yeah. Because no matter what we do, we're going to kill animals. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, you're talking to an animal lover, okay? I got ducks walking around in my backyard, dogs in the house. I love animals.
Yeah.
I was saddened by what's happened to the polar bears.
Yeah.
This morning when I was watching the program. But animals are going to get in the way of progress. It's going to happen. There's nothing. We can't stop it. We can minimize it as much as possible. But one oil spill destroys more wildlife than a windmill could ever do.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yes, birds are getting hit by windmills. Yes, it's happening. Deer are getting hit by cars. It's happening. You run over raccoons. It happens. We are going to lose some animals. no matter
that's
what.
pretty much
But we're not going to
necessary.
admit. But as this climate changes, we're losing a lot more animals because of oil than we ever would from windmills.
Oh, sure.
For one thing, windmills are limited to one species of animal, birds.
Yeah.
I've never seen a bear get hit by a windmill.
No, I don't think a squirrel is interested in climbing up a windmill.
I don't think squirrels are getting hit by windmills. Maybe a flying squirrel.
Well, a squirrel, a squirrel might eat some magic mushrooms and climb up the windmill to try to spin around while he's tripping, but, that's...
Yeah, it could happen.
It could happen,
But
well,
it goes back to what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people pissed off, but they're not doing anything about it. Well, I'm mad. Okay, good. I'm glad you're mad. I'm glad you have some outrage in you. Never lose your sense of rage.
Like my shared Facebook meme if you're for animals.
Right. A lot of good that does.
Oh, yeah. That's
a whole lot of good that does.
Of animals. Yeah.
Well, people are more interested in getting Facebook likes than they are results.
Sure. Yeah, I just saw a Facebook meme the other day, a picture of a guy said, "Hey, I'm going to heaven. I'd like to share the post on Facebook."
I thought typing amen got you into heaven.
Exactly. Tell St. Peter at the gates, "Oh, yeah, I murdered 5 people, but look, I liked this meme and said I love Jesus." Okay, we're going in, Mr. Hitler. Let's get back to 9/11 for a minute. So this is the anniversary. We really should talk about it a little bit. We've got 21 minutes left. We can touch on it for a couple more minutes. Let's face it, this government let it happen. We knew about bin Laden. Hell, we've known about bin Laden since the Clinton administration.
Mm-hmm.
And they blew it off. They knew airports weren't secure. They did tests all the time and got bombs through security, whatever they wanted through security. No big deal, and nothing was done to stop it. So, even if you believe totally the government's stance on it, that it was all radical Islamists, that Saudi Arabia had nothing to do with it, if you believe all that Israel wasn't involved, that, Jews weren't told not to come to work that day, that a big Jewish company didn't move out of the World Trade Center right before the attacks. If you believe all that, the government admits. One of the
largest shipping companies in the world. A week before they moved.
Yeah. Even if you don't believe any of that.
An Israeli shipping company.
Yeah. Coincidence, but even if you don't believe any of that, you just totally
John, the
believe
head
the
of Cantor Fitzgerald.
Yeah. The government admits that we knew all this was going to happen and just didn't do anything to stop it. They readily admit that. And it was all, we needed a war. Hey, what was it? Reagan, Gorbachev, tear down this wall. They tore down the wall. The Soviet Union disbanded. We were in a time of peace.
But hang on a minute, Don. Hang on. I want to hit on something you were saying.
Okay.
If you're to believe the story that you're told by your government, what you need to do is get you out a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen or a crayon, because you're not very bright, and start writing down all the things that you have to believe are coincidences in order for the government's story to ring true.
Yeah.
Write all these things down and then tell yourself that it was all just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence that building number 7 came down perfectly like a demolition.
Yeah.
It's just a coincidence that somehow we don't have footage of an airplane hitting the Pentagon, one of the most secure building on the planet. But nobody's ever seen a video of an airplane hitting it. Why?
Yeah, you see a little choppy thing of, something, one little frame where you surely can't see an airplane in it.
I think it's 3 or 4 frames, but it's not an airplane.
But yeah.
But they confiscated all the footage. There were so many cameras. There's a picture of a camera right above where that plane hit. I want to see the video from that camera showing the plane coming in and hitting the building.
Yeah, you gonna tell me the Pentagon doesn't have a security system with cameras taping everything within a mile of that building?
Oh, it's a 360-degree thing, absolutely. I mean,
no doubt.
But you've got to believe. You've got to believe that it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It just so happened. The same way you got to believe that John F. Kennedy Jr., who was going to beat Hillary Clinton, just happened to die in a plane crash.
Yeah.
He was going to take the seat that Hillary Clinton was destined to have in New York. It was his.
Yeah,
he was going to beat her.
Yeah.
So it's,
that even goes back, to his father. You have to believe that, that John Kennedy was shot, 3 times in 8 seconds with a bolt-action rifle.
Right. You got to believe.
Yeah.
A miracle bullet to the left. You got to, anybody that doesn't believe conspiracies are running our world, there's almost just no hope for you. Like I said last week, people are too busy looking down at their phones to look up and see a goddamn chemtrail.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You can't tell me when I look up in the sky and I see a chessboard that's normal. Airplanes fly on invisible highways in the sky. A plane going from Los Angeles to New York takes a superhighway in the sky.
Yep.
Because it's a straight shot. I grew, the house that I bought that I owned in Indiana, not far from Midway. Every plane that flew in and out of Midway, I knew exactly the path they were taking because I saw it every day for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then one day I started seeing a plane that looked like it was sowing a field back and forth, back and forth. Just one stripe, then another stripe, another stripe. Well, who in the hell is striping my sky? This isn't normal. This is not where the planes normally fly. Planes don't leave condensation trails that last 6 hours. They get thicker and thicker by the minute.
People, I didn't believe it. Don't feel bad, people. I didn't believe it until it was probably 2011. Larry and I both lived in Kentucky at the same time. Larry told me, and I didn't believe it. I went over to his house because it's in the middle of nowhere. There's no tall buildings around. The closest airport is 100 miles away. And I look up in the sky, a plane going back and forth, leaving a trail. Like you said, that didn't disappear. Pretty soon it's a checkerboard. And I'm like, holy shit, pretty soon there's cloud cover on a perfectly sunny day.
And it's everywhere. I moved from Kentucky to Oklahoma. It's here. I guess there's just no planes flying today because I don't see any chemtrails or condensation trails. I don't see any condensation trails. It must just be a day. Planes don't fly today.
Yeah,
they're all taking the day off.
Yeah.
There must be because they're not there today. Well, why are the planes on Sunday not creating these trails when the planes on Saturday did? Just allegedly flying in the same spots, going to the same places, leaving the same airports. They're the same planes. Well, where are the trails today?
Yeah.
Why only on certain days do you see them? What's that?
The jet fuel doesn't leave condensation trails that are there for 6-7 hours.
Nope. And anybody that tries to tell you that you're an idiot and a conspiracy theorist, all they got to do is watch the sky for a day. I said it last week on the show. I said, don't waste your time looking at the sky. Go fishing. Fish in a spot where you got open skies around you. Don't sit under a tree.
Yep.
Take you a 6-pack of beer, pack you a couple of bowls if that's your preference. Doesn't matter. Throw you a line in the water and just keep an eye on the pole and keep an eye on the sky for an afternoon.
Yeah.
And watch it happen. You can watch a plane fly across the sky, and then 2 hours later, you can see where that plane flew across the sky. But the little condensation trail that it left is now 15 times larger than it was when the plane first flew by.
Yeah.
That's not a condensation